It's time for another Disney Plus review. This time we're going to be doing Season 2, Episode 2 of The Mandalorian. We're going to talk about the plot, my takeaways from it, and I want to hear from you at the end as well. Welcome back to Eye to Eye, Disney Through Our Eyes. This is our Disney variety channel where we cover anything and everything Disney. My name is Kyle, and a couple things before we get started here. If you enjoy what you're watching today, please consider hitting that like button. If you don't want to miss anything that we put out for you, videos, live streams, and everything in between, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell as well. So this is Episode 2 for Season 2 of The Mandalorian, or otherwise known as Chapter 10, The Passenger, if you want to go by, I guess, the official name. Now, before we get into anything here, I always like to remind folks that this is filled with spoilers. So if you have not watched this episode and don't want to be spoiled on anything, you need to get out now. This is not the way. So with Episode 2 of Season 2 under our belts, we've gotten past the initial hype of the first episode, and now get into the meat of what this story for this season is actually going to be about. And I got to be honest with you, I had some flashbacks to some things that people probably had problems with the first season, and those were very few problems in between. So there's not very much to complain about here, but I think there's some things that we can notice here that we hope don't become patterns throughout the rest of the series. But we'll talk about those. I want to give you my takeaways after we talk about the plot a little bit. We pick right back up with the very end of Episode 1 for Chapter 10, and they're heading through the desert back to Mos Eisley to get their next lead on their search for the Mandalorians that are out there in the galaxy. Of course, they run into a couple of bandits, and you know that just kind of what has to happen. He does his Mandalorian thing and takes them down. When they get back to Mos Eisley, they meet back up with their contact there, and they're able to get some more information, although it has to do with making a deal to take on a passenger, hence the name of the episode, who is a frog lady who's trying to get back to her husband with her spawn in this planet not too far off. So as they go off on their journey to this planet, they're intercepted by a couple of Republic pilots in X-Wings that are aware of an arrest warrant out for this ship and the Mandalorian. A chase ensues, and they escape onto an unknown ice planet and end up crash landing there. This leaves our group into having to survive the elements, and let's not mention the numerous of all sizes spiders, one very big one that live on this ice planet. Thankfully though, or not thankfully, our group is saved by the Republic pilots that were chasing them and are able to survive the attack by these ice spiders. They end up letting the group go for understanding that the Mandalorian, while may have a dark past, has probably helped them out in the past as well and kind of turn the other way. And our group is able to literally limp off into the distance as they continue their journey. Takeaway number one for me right off the bat here has to do with probably the only negative or not so positive thing I have about this. One of the biggest gripes that people had with Season 1 is that we had the very exciting first episode, and then it just felt like a bunch of little side missions that we just didn't really need and kind of circled back to the main story. This one feels that way a little bit. We've got another little side mission that has distracted the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda from their ultimate goal, even though it's kind of leading them towards that way. I don't think this is a pattern they're going to continue to follow throughout the entire season, but I know there's going to be some frustrations about that with some folks out there, so I just wanted to address it right at the top as my main takeaway. Takeaway number two for me would be going back to the Mos Eisley Cantina. We love familiarity, and Episode 1 was clearly that. It was basically a love letter to George Lucas, and this was one final piece in that if we're on Tatooine and in Mos Eisley, we got to go back to the cantina. And so it was nice to walk in there, see familiar sights and scenes and creatures even. I believe Dr. Mandible, I think he was called, has been seen there before. So it's just a nice little homage back to what we're familiar with before we move on to maybe some new territory within the Mandalorian universe. Takeaway number three for me, it's going to be a little bit of personal gripe, and that is making real world characters for us or creatures fit into the Star Wars universe. And I'm fine with taking some creative licenses with things we have here and making them be something else in the Star Wars universe, but I just felt having a frog lady, and I think that's officially the name of it, was just a little unoriginal. And if you even kind of account Dr. Mandible, who's basically just a humanoid praying mantis, To me, it just felt like we took something here and then made it a humanoid type of creature. I would have liked a little bit more originality other than it basically just looking like a humanoid frog and basically the same type of reproductive structure with their eggs and their spawn and carrying them around in goo and stuff like that. I mean, that's like straight out of stuff that happens here on Earth. So that did take me out of the story just a little bit, but again, it doesn't really ruin the episode for me. It's just something that I would have liked done a little differently. Takeaway number 4 for me is arachnophobia. If you have a fear of spiders, you don't need to watch this episode. My goodness. I mean, when they went all out with spiders, they went all out. I think we all kind of saw that coming with the egg scene with Baby Yoda walking around in there. Thought something was going to pop out. I wasn't expecting ice spiders. Now, what's worse than spiders? Ice spiders. What's worse than that? Giant ice spiders. I mean, this to me, look, I just griped about using real world creatures in the Star Wars, but they kind of changed it up and made it a little bit more unique. I mean, we don't have ice spiders here that I know of in our planet and in our world. So I thought that was an interesting take on it and kind of changing the way they look and the way they behave, and almost like a pack. That was really, really freaky. Like that messed with my mind. So arachnophobia in this episode made things a little bit interesting. And my final takeaway is probably my most important one, and that is the continuing visuals of the emerging republic that we're seeing here. We saw them a little bit in season 1 of The Mandalorian, especially in that prison episode that we had, the prison breakout one, and obviously there's implications from that here in this episode, so great continuity there as well. I just like seeing this fledgling government starting to kind of spread its wings and, for lack of a better term, enforce its will upon the rest of the galaxy. However, though, in the way that the pilots handled the situation with the Mandalorian, I thought it was a great way to show that the Republic still is in its roots. It's understanding that you sometimes have to work with people, even if there's a little bit of an unscrupulous background with them, because we know the Republic had a history of working with groups of peoples and creatures that maybe necessarily most people didn't want to work with to accomplish their ultimate goals. So when they looked the other way for the Mandalorian, because he had a warrant out, but maybe helped out some other people as well, it kind of just said, look, we ain't going to help you, but we're out of here. Just don't get in our way again. And I really love that because I think it's a great way to show the Republic is emerging, but still is the Republic that we know and love. So that is my thoughts and takeaways from episode 2 of season 2, The Mandalorian, otherwise known as chapter 10, The Passenger. I want to hear from you now. What did you think about my takeaways, but do you have some of your own? Please share those down in the comment section below if you'd like to continue the conversation. If you're interested in other content from us, whether it be Star Wars content, other Mandalorian reviews, or even just other Disney Plus reviews, I'm going to have some links available for you in the description below, but also above in the video as well. We really appreciate you taking some time to watch this video today and talk with us about The Mandalorian. We hope to see you here next time. Until we assemble again, may the Force be with you, and I'll see you real soon.